Hello, DynamicsCon community. Right from the beginning, I would like to thank all of you for voting for this session. This is my first DynamicsCon presentation, so I'm super excited to share with you what I am most passionate about, and that is analytics. I'm also thankful for the DynamicsCon organizers who put together such a great event for everyone. The coordination and the effort to put such a big event together successfully must be a great undertaking from a great team. So thank you for connecting all of us and creating a place where we all can be helpful to one another and learn from each other. That is my goal today, simply be helpful to hopefully some of you. Here's a little bit about me. My name is Igor Zhdanov. I know what you're thinking. How do you pronounce that ZH there? It's a Z, it's a zh sound. It's Russian, but it's Igor Zhdanov. Very Russian name. You can find me on LinkedIn if you want to connect. I welcome those connections. And a little bit about me, I'm a business intelligence and analytics lead at Stone Ridge Software. We're a Microsoft Gold partner. I have 8 years of experience in analytics and various types of reporting. My background is actually more financial, so I lean more towards financial analysis and reporting, but I have done all sorts of reporting, all sorts of analytics in my career, although it's not been a long career, but I've enjoyed doing all kinds of analytics. I have more than 4 years of experience in specific Microsoft products like Business Central, Project Operations, Power BI, Dynamics Sales, Customer Service. I've been focusing there for the last 4 years. So I love it. I love where I work. And I have a bachelor's degree in accounting, which makes me dangerous, but not by any means a CPA or a professional in accounting. But I do understand debits and credits, I like to say. And I got my degree at Penn State University. If there are any Penn State alumni out there, we are Penn State. Do put a shout out in the chat as I'm doing the presentation. There's going to be a live session at the end for questions and answers. But as I'm presenting, if you want to share a little bit about yourself in the chat, go ahead and drop something in the chat so we can have the interaction going as I'm presenting. On a personal note, I love spending time with my daughter, who is now 3 years old. She's at a fun age right now, and my wife. We like to travel together. We like to eat a lot of good food. We like to drink coffee, and I like to practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's something new that I've taken on, and that's been a lot of fun. So that's a little bit on a personal note for me. Once again, if you want to share a little bit about yourself in the chat, go ahead and drop what you want to say about yourself to the community. My session is called Power BI and D365 Business Central, Connecting Your Data. Although the session is categorized as a Business Central session, as you could tell from the title, we're actually going to be talking about Business Central and Power BI, specifically how those two tools work together. To set the expectation from the beginning, the session is meant to be introductory by nature. I'm hoping to be helpful to those of you who are maybe currently using Business Central and trying to get your data out of the system to do maybe additional reporting or analytics, and you haven't used Power BI. Maybe you're thinking about Power BI. Maybe you've heard a lot about Power BI, but you've never used it. That is my primary target audience for this presentation. So it's going to be more of an introductory level into Power BI, and then how does it work with Business Central? Or maybe you're contemplating using Business Central and investigating what other tools work great with Business Central. I hope to show you that Power BI is a great tool to keep in your toolbox as you are using Business Central. Those two really do work well together. I have an agenda. It's pretty short. I want to focus more on showing you things rather than talking, but there is a few slides here in the beginning, and we're going to talk about some fundamentals. What is Power BI? Why use Power BI? And then we're going to switch to a live demonstration where we're going to connect our data, our Business Central data, into Power BI. I'm actually going to create a really quick Power BI dashboard live for you. And we're going to publish that Power BI dashboard to your workspace and to our workspace in our Power BI. And then we're going to try to integrate that Power BI dashboard right into Business Central. Okay, and depending on how much time we have at the end, we might do that in one of two ways. Okay, so that's the agenda. But here's where I like to start this presentation. I call this the big data problem. There's some built-in sarcasm there. Take a look at this statistic here. 94% of enterprises say data is essential to business growth. That's a report by MicroStrategy. So we have proved as a business community, as in a broad way, we have proved the essentials of using data for business. Everyone agrees that data is essential for business growth. But look at the bottom statistic there. 73% of data goes unused for analytics purposes. And that's a report by Forrester. That statistic is a little bit more outdated than the first one, but the point is still true. We have learned the value of data, but we have not learned how to use it. And if that's your experience, just know that a lot of people are going through that same experience. And that's where business intelligence comes in. Here's how I like to define business intelligence. In a simple manner, when things are technical and complex, people usually tune out. I like to define business intelligence in a very simple way, and this is how I do that. Moving from data to action. Business Central is about business intelligence is about moving from data to action. Now, your journey from data to action is going to depend on the tools that you use. You can see here in this little visual here that there is a static report approach where there's then a lot of manual processes introduced to the decision and then the action is made. Or you can use some automated tools, some automated analytics to give you that decision much quicker. And that's where Power BI comes in. So a Power BI is a business intelligence software. So it's a software, it's a tool that is made to take your data in your system and move that data, create some useful insights from that data. And the goal is to move you to that action much quicker than if you were doing manual processes and reportings. It's an interactive data visualization tool, as you will see when I do a quick presentation of it. It's really made to be designed to be interactive. It's not meant to be a static report. It's made to empower the user of the dashboard or of the report in Power BI to be able to get different layers of insights based on how the dashboard is designed. It's part of the Microsoft Power Platform. If you're following what Microsoft is doing and the path that they're heading, there is a great emphasis and there's a great investment being made into the Microsoft Power Platform. Microsoft is really looking to use the Power Platform to be that connecting factor across the dynamic systems that they offer. The whole idea, I like to say here, the whole idea of the Power Platform and the vision behind the Power Platform is to do technical tasks in a simplified manner. It's a low-code platform, right? It's made to empower users to be using these tools and drive technical solutions without having that technical background. So just think, Power BI is a tool that was intended to be broadly used in the organization. So one of the questions that I always get is, how hard is it to learn Power BI? Well, the whole vision behind Power BI is that it's made to be low-code platform for a broad audience in your organization. So what we try to drive with our clients is we want as many people as possible in your organization using Power BI for their various needs. And it's really doable. We see a lot of people having success with that. It's a cloud-based analytics service. As you'll see, there is an app component to it, and then there's a web service component to it where you publish your reports right to the cloud and right to the web, and those are then accessible on any device. I used to have a coworker that used to walk around with a KPI dashboard on his Apple Watch, and that is just tremendous. That's just tremendous how quickly you can get insights from Power BI because it's on the internet and you can access it from any device that's connected to the internet. And lastly, it's created for self-service analytics. So when business intelligence was gaining traction, there was a lot of software companies developing pre-packaged business intelligence tools and reports that could be used for a broad audience. Power BI is really made to be that self-service analytics tool for the end users to develop the insights that they need for the business that they have, because their business is totally unique. So let me sell Power BI a little bit. Why Power BI, you might be asking. I have just a couple of bullet points. I'm sure I'm not touching the full spectrum of why Power BI. These are just some that I like to think about. So first of all, it's close to real-time actionable insights. So Power BI connects directly to your database. And as you create these reports, these dashboards, they are then connected right to your database, right? And for our instance, connected to Business Central. And as you are doing things in Business Central, like posting transactions, doing a lot of activity, based on the number of refreshes that you have on your report, you can be getting those insights real time. So no more exporting and importing and transforming. It's all done by designing a report that does that for you. So I say it's close to real time for that reason, because there's still a refresh process involved, but that process is included in your license, and you're allowed to refresh up to 8 times if you have the Power BI Pro license. Integration with the Microsoft stack. So Power BI, and this is one of the marks of Power BI, and I believe what sets it apart is the integration that's available for the tool. And this is always expanding, by the way. Currently, there's a lot of different integrations you can create of integrating, for example, your Power BI reporting right into your Microsoft Teams, where you do most of your work throughout the day, if you're using Microsoft Teams. It also integrates to other tools. At the end of this, we're going to look at how it integrates to Business Central itself. But the integration ability of Power BI is what sets it apart. It's customizable. So I like to say there is an art to it and there's a science to it. There's both components. You can be really creative in the way that you customize your visualizations to meet your business needs and however you need to present your data. Cost of ownership is relatively low. I say relatively because you might be looking at these licenses here and you might say, Igor, well, $9 per user per month is actually a lot for us as an organization. Let me caveat that with saying there are other tools in the market that are more expensive, that use the same functionality, similar functionality, less functionality than Power BI, and that are more expensive. So $10 a month is a relatively low cost. And notice there are other licenses that are involved. So what the great thing that Power BI and Microsoft does is it allows you to use Power BI for a lot of things for completely free, up until the point of where you want to share your reporting. When you want to share your reports that you've designed with other users in the organization, that's when you're talking about licensing and getting a Power BI Pro license. But if you're trying to just connect to your data, if you're just trying to see if you can create some reports, you could totally do that for free. You can go to powerbi.com, Microsoft.com, and you could download Power BI Desktop, start designing, start connecting your data, see how you can navigate through the tool, learn the tool. And then when you're going to be ready to share those reports, then that's when you're going to need a license. And then I want to point out that there's also a Power BI Premium license which has additional functionality and an additional cost to go with it. Here's why it's worth it, though. It's a quick return on investment, and here's why. I used to work for an organization that used to do a lot of its reporting in Excel. I remember that dreaded spreadsheet that everybody called the beast. Everybody was somehow involved in producing this report at the end of the month. Literally, the whole company had some input, and just the amount of time that it took on a regular basis, on a monthly basis, to put that report together, It just caused great inefficiency for the organization of hours and hours of labor hours to create these insights. Now, they were useful insights. We were using that report to run the business successfully, but the amount of time and effort it took to put those insights together was tremendous. So I like to say, when you create the right report, the right dashboard that you need, and it gives you the insights that you need to run your business, it's a quick return on investment because you're automatically getting those insights in Power BI. It's the best BI tool on the market. That's not just my opinion. There is some debate over that question, but in my mind, there's no debate. Power BI is the tool. Just look at this magic quadrant for analytics and BI platforms that Gartner puts out. Notice the years. In 2017, Tableau and Power BI were neck to neck in the leaders section. And then in 2021, notice Microsoft has a leg up on all of the competitors. And I think it's because they have the grand vision for the tool. They have a great team behind it, and they have a great user community behind it. Lastly, integration to Business Central. That's what we're going to look at. If you're using Business Central, Power BI reports can be integrated right into your ERP system, so you don't have to access them in other places. And I will show you the nuances behind that as we get to the live demonstration. The next 3 slides are just 3 distinctives from me. There are other distinctives of Power BI compared to other tools. I think these are just the 3 main functions that I love about Power BI, and I just wanted to share those with you. First of all, the connectors, right? There are more than 117, I believe, at the moment, connectors in Power BI, allowing you to connect to all sorts of data sources. I know we're limiting this presentation to Business Central, but just think, if you have data sources somewhere else in your organization, just imagine how powerful it might be to connect that data with your Business Central data and marry the data, transform the data to drive some analytics from that data. It's an amazing opportunity to connect a lot of your data sources. And this list is constantly growing. Microsoft is constantly looking to create natural connections to other data sources, and these are available for the users to use. I really like the user interface of Power BI. I love that there's a Power BI desktop. That's the version that's downloaded to your computer. That's the design version, I like to call it. That's where you design all of your insights, all of your reports. It saves as a file. You're able to go back to your old files, save versions, share those files with other users, other designers. And then once you've finished your design, you publish it to your Power BI service, and then it's accessible on the web. So just the interface and the structure of Power BI, how it works that way, I love the user interface. And lastly, the Power Query Editor is a super powerful tool that allows you to transform your data as you bring it out raw out of your system or any other data source. If you're a Power Excel user and Power Query Editor sounds familiar to you, it's really similar functionality that is available in Excel that Microsoft has created within Power BI. Really, the idea is transform, change, fix, edit your data in the Power Query Editor before you create the insights that you need. It's a powerful tool built right within Power BI. So that's all the slides that I have. I would like to spend the rest of our time actually looking at a live demonstration. So what I have here is a Power BI canvas that I have tailored a little bit here for the DynamicsCon presentation. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually connect to a Sandbox Business Central environment. And for those of you that have never connected Power BI to Business Central, I'm going to go through this section slower. That way you know how to connect to your system. That's one of the goals that I have for this presentation, is to teach you how to at least connect your data and get your data out. So I'm not going to cover all the navigation here. I'll just mention a few things as I'm developing this so you get a general feel for it. The main function really in Business Central is this get data function. This get data function here allows you to connect to the data sources that I mentioned. If you click get data, first of all, it gives you some most often used connectors, but if you click more here, you will see the 117 connectors that I mentioned. Just take a look. There are so many different data sources that you can connect to with Power BI. We're interested in Business Central, so I'm going to click Online Services, and notice there is a connector right within Power BI called Dynamics 365 Business Central. If I click Connect to it, it's going to look to that environment that I signed in at. And if you are signed in to your Microsoft, if you're signed in with your Microsoft login, it's just going to recognize your data source. It might ask you an extra step that like it didn't ask me to actually sign in, but it's literally just your access, your Microsoft account, right? So the way the connector works is it shows you the environments. In my case, although this is called a production environment, this is a sandbox that I have, Cronus sandbox. And then notice it gives you a layer of companies. Okay, so I have 3 companies within my Cronus. And if I keep drilling down, I eventually get to something called web services. Okay, if I open up my web services, notice it gives me a whole bunch of tables. Okay, we're going to get to this. I'm going to show you where these tables exist, but because you're really quickly going to realize that not all the tables that you need are there for you to use. And that's totally configurable. Within Business Central, you need to configure the data exposure there for you to bring in additional data that's not on this list here. Okay, I'll show you how to do that as we turn to Business Central. But for now, let me just connect here a couple tables, and then we'll switch over to Business Central, and I will show you what I'm talking about. So I'm interested in the customer card, and I'm interested in the customer ledger. Those are the 2 tables. Let me make this a little bit bigger for you and show you this preview function. I love this preview function. It allows you to preview the data even before you pull it into Power BI. So it shows me the customer card table. It's a truncated view, meaning it's not showing the full data set, but it gives me enough to see that I'm actually pulling the correct table that I need. Okay, so this is prior to even pulling it into your data model. You have this preview to use. I'm going to pull in just 2 tables, and we're going to click we're going to create a really quick dashboard from those. So as it's connecting here, let me just switch to the environment. And we're going to come back to Power BI. Let me just show you where those web services live so we could draw the connection of here's how you can configure those. Okay, so if you are in your Business Central environment, go ahead in the search bar and type in web services. As it comes up, just click it. It's going to take you to the web services page. This is the same list that you just saw when I opened up web services in that Power BI connector. Now you might be wondering, how did these get here? It's if you haven't built any out in your environment and they're just there, that's because it's a pre-configured list that comes with the environment. These are here for you to use. So you're welcome to connect to all the ones that are here, but you will really quickly realize that not all of the pages that you need, all of the data that you need for your reporting are there. So you could totally create those on your own. And I just want to show you how easily it is, how easily you can create those. You click New up here. It opens up a new line for you. Let me just, sometimes it plays around here. Let me just reload real quick and click New again. It's not popping up. Just 1 second. Sorry, it's not cooperating. Let me just refresh and come back to web services. Sometimes it's the browser. I'm using Microsoft Edge. Should be working. Web services. I click new. There you go. So a brand new line pops up and it's empty. Here you have an option to do 3 different types of web service objects. You're going to want to work with pages. So queries and code units are really for more technical APIs for developers to use. If you're just a Business Central user, just use page. Notice here that you're exporting actual ERP pages. So when I click page and I click this little drop down on the next column, it actually gives me the pages that are available for selection. Okay, so let's say I'm interested in vendors. Okay, I just need to type in the service name here. Keep in mind that the service name here in this 4th column is actually what shows up in Power BI. So do name it something logical that ties to the object name. The last thing you need to do is just publish it. And you do that by clicking this little checkbox here. And if you click reload, it's going to generate an OData URL establishing a web service object. And what does this do? This exposes the page, the data, out of your system to an external application like Power BI, and you can connect to it and you can bring that data out. So these web services need to be configured as you're pulling data into Power BI. Okay, if you want to read up a little bit more on that and how to do that, go ahead and just Google web services, Power Business Central and Power BI, and there's a lot of information out there. So I pulled in 2 tables into here, and how I know that is I see them now on my field section. I got the customer ledger entries table and I got the customer card. Okay, I'm going to just create a quick dashboard to show you what Power BI could do. It's really quick. Let's say I wanted some customer ledger information in this dashboard. Let's say I wanted to create just a reference right to my ledger, my customer ledger. Let's just start building stuff. And there's multiple ways to start building. One is just to start selecting, and it automatically starts to build visualizations. Or you could start with a certain visualization here, and then put in the data that you want. Okay, I'm going to change that to posting date. Here, I'm pulling in the posting date. Let's pull in some more columns here. Customer number, customer name, let's say document type. I was kind of mimicking the customer ledger at this point. I want to see that detail, right? Notice this looks really similar to my customer ledger in Business Central. Document number is important. Let's pull in 2 more, amount and remaining amount. Okay. So notice it's a table format, right? And it's literally just pulling my customer ledger. Now, one thing I need to do, I have 2 tables in here. Here's what I could do in Power BI. I can build out a data model and create relationships between tables in order to provide insights off of those tables within one report. For me to show data from these 2 tables, I need to relate them to one another. And if you know anything about databases, you know that there's a key that is used for the relationship. And there's different types of relationships that are involved in databases. But I, for example, know that the customer ledger entries table and the customer card table connect with something called a customer number. That is the key. On the ledger, it's called customer number, and on the customer card, it's actually called number. But I know those 2 are the same. So I'm going to establish a relationship by just clicking and dragging one field to the other. And notice there's a little plus sign there. If I let go, it's actually going to establish that relationship. So this symbol here means many to one. That just built a many to one relationship between these 2. If I double click on it, it's actually going to show you the relationship itself. Notice here, I'm connecting the customer ledger table, customer number, to the customer card and the number, and it's a many to one relationship. Okay, so now because those two tables are connected, I've essentially created a data model that I could use to create visualizations that are completely interactive between those two tables in one report. Okay, so let me show you what I mean by that. So here I have a simple table that I want to now, let's say, filter based on customers, for example. And I want to do that off of my customer card. So there's a visualization in here called a slicer. A slicer is essentially a filter that you could add right to the report that allows you to filter the report. Okay, this is going to allow the user of the report to select certain information for the other visuals to react to that information. So I'm going to go ahead and select the name of the customer in this selection list. And notice I have 5 different customers in my system, and they're all there. Now, because that data model is connected, notice what I could do now. I have this customer ledger here, and if I click through the visualization, notice this visualization here changes, right? So if I wanted to see everything for School of Fine Art, all of the activity on the customer ledger, here it is, right? And that's how powerful slicers are. I'm going to come into this formatting tab and just allow the selection of all again. Now I have the select all option, okay? And I have all here, okay? Another thing you could do that would be useful on the ledger, right, is to add another slicer and make it a date slicer or a date filter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the posting date now on the customer ledger. Notice I'm interacting with both of these tables, but they're completely connected. They're related in the data model. So I'm able to build slicers off of both of them. So if I click date here, notice now it's a date range type factor. And if I use this slicer, it's going to limit my data to whatever I need to see. If I need to look at a certain month or a certain week or a certain period, I'm able to do that here, and that's the data that I will get in my visualization. Let me just add one more. Let me add let's just add a bar chart really quick. Let's do a clustered bar chart. And what I'm going to do here is use the customer card. I'm going to pull in the name on the axes. So we want to see customer name. And we want to see balance owed, because who doesn't want to know how much money your customers owe you, right? So here, I just created another visualization that now shows me the amount that is due by customer, okay? Meaning they owe me these dollars, this money. Once again, notice if I click through my slicers, notice the data changes. So that's when I said that Power BI is interactive, that's what I meant. It's really made to create a report that's an experience for the user and drive different types of insights off of one report. Okay, so here, let me just point out one thing. There are the filtering and the visualization and the formatting of Power BI is super rich. Each visualization has its own specification for formatting. You could format this to your liking. You can change colors. You could add data points. You can do a lot of different things here to this visualization to make it your own. Filtering is super rich. For example, here, let me show you how the filtering here works. You could filter on the visual, you could filter on this page, or you can filter on all the pages, because you can create multiple pages. So we're gonna filter, let's say, this ledger. Let's say I'm interested only in invoices here, or in payments that have invoices that have a remaining amount. Notice, because I've selected the field, it's in here. It's in the filter pane now, and what I'm able to do now is to filter it. Notice there's some logic here I could use. For example, I'm interested in everything that is greater than 0, right? I'm not interested in invoices that were fully paid. I just want to see those that have remaining amounts. There's not that many of them, but there you go. that's actually showing me invoices by customer that make up this balance due. All right, so now I could click either on the slicer or even on the visualization itself, and it's going to show me the detail of what makes up that total. Okay, so I'm not showing the full function. I'm not doing justice at all. Again, the intention of this just to show you the introduction. You could do a lot more things with Power BI as far as visualization, as far as data modeling. But let me do this now. Let me switch and publish this report. I'm going to publish it to Power BI service, and then we're going to integrate it right into the Business Central environment. So let's say that this is a finished dashboard. I'm ready to publish this to the web and then give access to others to access it myself in the web. And here's how easily it publishes. If you go to home here and you click publish, it's going to ask me to save. I'm going to go ahead and save. It's going to, based on my login, it's going to look and find my workspaces that are in my Power BI web service in the web client. If I click I'm going to publish it to my workspace here. I select I have different workspaces in here, but let's say I'm going to use my workspace. Click select. It's publishing it now to the web. So here's what I'm able to do because of that. If I go to app.powerbi.com, that's the Power BI website, and I log in with my account. So let me use my Sandbox account and log in here. I will show you Power BI service now and where it published to. Okay, let me just put in a password, log in. So now I'm using a web browser to access my Power BI web service. Okay, this is an amazing tool. Also, there's a lot of functionality here that is not in Power BI Desktop, and there's a lot of functionality in Power BI Desktop that is not in Power BI Service. There is a natural workflow through these tools, and that is mostly to do the primary design and data modeling work in Power BI Desktop, and then publish it to your Power BI Service where you have a finished report and you're able to access it. It doesn't mean you can't edit the reports. It's just really the Power BI Desktop is made for designing and for creating. So here's my workspace. It's going to publish it based on the name of the file. If I click here, there you go. So I just published this Power BI report to the web, and now I'm able to access it here in app.powerbi.com. I could share it with others. I could now, because it's on the web, I could access it in Business Central. I could integrate it to my Microsoft Teams through my workspace once it's in Power BI service. Let me show you how to do a quick integration into Business Central and where that works. Okay, so it has to be published to your Power BI service here into your workspace for you then to have access to it through the natural integration that's created in Business Central. So let me pull up the Business Central environment here, and let me show you where that integration exists. So there's two places, and I'm gonna be able to show you just one of them. I'll show you the second one. I won't be able to integrate it, but actually I'll show you the limit of it. I'm on a Role Center on the home page. If you scroll all the way down, you should see a section called Power BI Reports. If I click this little caret and I click Select Report, it connects right to my Power BI service workspaces. Okay, so we just created this Power BI demonstration report for DynamicsCon. If I select it, it's gonna integrate that report out of Power BI service right into here. Now notice in Business Central, really this whole section called Insights is really made for small metrics. So you might want to be careful how you design the report. You see that here it's really hard to see what you're looking at. So you might want to make it more like a tile type report. and you're able to switch from next to previous report. You're able to access as many reports as you create in Power BI service. You can also expand the report. For example, if you did do one like I have here, you're able to expand it. And then if you want to go even further, you can go even further and expand it to a fuller screen and see it that way. Okay, so that is the natural integration that's built right within Business Central. You have to publish your Power BI report to your service and then connect it through the workspace here. Let me show you one more before we end this presentation, and that is on something called lists. So your primary lists, for example, your customer list has a tile here, a fact box, right, that's created for Business Central created. Well, what you could do is click more options here under actions, go to display, click show hide Power BI reports, and that opens up this whole new section here that acts very similar to how I just showed you on the role center. So it gives me access to my workspace. I click the report that I just created, and I have access to it here. Now, again, notice the tile size. You could adjust the page of the report, the size of the report, and you could totally do that to adjust for where you're using it. So that's two places in Business Central where you can then integrate your reports. And once again, this is connected to your service workspaces, so you're able to go back and next on your reports. That is my presentation for you. I hope this at least gave you a taste. This gave you a taste of Power BI. And I hope this was useful for you. And I hope that you do great on your journey in Power BI. Just remember that Power BI really is made for a broad audience. Continue to leverage the people that you have with the skills that you have, but don't always look for the most technical people to take care of Power BI. Look for those that are going to be willing to learn. And we've seen a lot of different types of users from technical backgrounds, from non-technical backgrounds, pick up Power BI and drive some neat insights for their business in Power BI. So with that, I'm going to conclude. Thank you for joining. Once again, there's going to be a session here at the end for questions and answers. If you have any questions or if you would like to connect with me, do reach out on LinkedIn. Let's connect. Let's discuss Power BI. Let's discuss Business Central. I'd be happy to make that connection. Thank you for your time. I hope you guys can all hear me. So there's something really painful about watching yourself present. So I'm going to go ahead and answer the questions that you guys have posted, if you have any more, and I'm going to try to get through them here. Okay, so let's just go down the row. The first question from Jeremy. What have you found for easy wins? Power BI reports that expose useful data that are easy to make, and when presented, spark that, oh, we need this moment. So that's an awesome question because sometimes Power BI is you have to sell Power BI internally in your organization to implement it. People are kind of adverse to change, so you want to be able to show them, here's what you could do. One thing before I mention the type of reports, something for Jeremy. Jeremy, I said this in the presentation, but keep in mind that you could download Power BI Desktop, connect to your environment for absolutely free. So you could download Power BI Desktop, do the design work, create the report that you want to show for free without the company making any investment into licensing. So that's just for your sales strategy. But the type of reports that we see a lot are sales reports. Everyone speaks sales. Everyone in the organization usually speaks sales, and who doesn't want to see sales, right? So Business Central specifically, dimensions are awesome, super powerful data tools. So using dimensionalized, data to present some sort of sales is always a sell. and it's always great. We see accounting dashboards as well. You know, APAR, customer vendor based. Those are some good ones that show kind of, you know, can do some quick analytics on those. Like for example, aging on AP, and just balances due, right? And everybody wants to see that information. Also, just a general comment with Power BI. Power BI is great at doing KPIs and ratios. It's really the most. That's what it's created to do. Is to give you that one report look right into a performance metric. So we find a lot of success in creating ratios and KPIs in Power BI. So if you can create a quick one, for example, for sales growth, year over year or period over period, that's a pretty easy sell. So I hope I answered your question there. Next question, difference between connecting using Business Central connector and Business Central connector on premise. So Business Central comes in two different versions, software as a service, which is the cloud-based, and then you can get Business Central on-premise, which would be right on your server. So the two connectors are just used depending on the environment that you have. So if you have Business Central software as a service, you would use the connector that I used in the presentation, and if you have Business Central on-premise, you would be using that connector. Okay. I just want to agree with David, like I did in the chat there, that it doesn't make sense that there's so many pages missing in that pre-configured list. I agree 100%. I haven't seen that list change either from version to version. I would, you know, we should make a case to Microsoft to make that pre-configured list a little more broad for sure. I couldn't agree anymore there. So for Jack, there's a question. Some pages don't contain all the fields found in its underlying table. Is there a way without a developer creating a query for you to be able to report on that field? For those of you who don't understand what Jack is asking, those web services that we pre-configured were actually pre-configured. They're pre-configured, and when you expose the data, it actually doesn't expose every single field on the table that you're working with, on the data table that you're working with. There's a preset of fields that allows you to pull that data. Unfortunately, the answer, Jack, is the only way to expose additional fields is to write a custom query, and a developer would need to be doing that. So if you have created a web service page and you expose the page, you pulled in that data into Power BI, and you quickly saw, wait a minute, this is not the full data set for sure. You got to reach out to a developer and have them develop a query that exposes some additional fields for you. But that's not too of a complicated process. Any developer can do that practically. So I hope that answers your question. Let's see. Abby asked a question about OData versus BC connector. So there's two ways to connect to Business Central. That's through the OData connector and through the BC connector that I was showing. The difference between the two is on the OData connector, you're actually connecting to specific web service objects that are in your web services. Like you're taking the URL, for example, for the customers page, and you're pulling it in through the OData connector. Where on the BC connector, you have the luxury of seeing your full web service list, and you're able to select it that way. And really, there's not from a performance perspective, there's not a big difference between the two that I've seen anyway. Of all the times that I use it, it's just easier. I feel like it's easier to just sign in with a Microsoft account on the BC connector and have access to it. So it's just more of an ease type of question. Travis had a question: does running a large query on a large table cause table locks through the web service? So we recommend to our clients getting data out of Business Central and then reporting on it.